The Discovery, the mining vessel Terra Nova, appeared on Earth's orbital sensors at exactly 14:27 GMT on a Tuesday that would change everything. Commander Jackson Hayes watched from the observation deck of Lunar Station as the familiar bulk carrier approached its cargo bay, heavy with precious metals from the asteroid belt. After 6 months in the void, the crew of 12 was finally coming home, but something was wrong. Hayes had been tracking mining vessels for 15 years, and he knew the signs of a successful mission. Crews would be chattering on open channels, sharing stories of close calls with asteroids, complaining about recycled air, or simply expressing their joy at seeing Earth's blue marble growing larger in their viewports. The Terra Nova's crew was silent. "Lunar Control to Terra Nova, welcome home," Hayes transmitted, his voice carrying across the vacuum. "How was the harvest?" The response came immediately, crisp and professional. "Lunar Control, this is Captain Sarah Chen. Mission successful. Requesting standard approach vector for Docking Bay 7. Hayes frowned. Captain Chan's voice sounded different, not just tired from the long journey, but somehow more measured, more precise. He had known Sarah for 8 years, had watched her grow from an eager mining engineer to one of the most respected captains in the fleet. This wasn't quite her voice. "Terra Nova, you're cleared for approach. Medical and debriefing teams are standing by." Hayes paused, studying the ship's approach pattern on his screens. "Sarah, is everything all right out there? Your crew's been quiet." Another pause, longer this time. When Chen responded, her voice carried an odd resonance, as if multiple people were speaking in perfect harmony. "Everything is fine, Commander. We've simply learned the value of efficiency." As the Terra Nova settled into its docking cradle with mechanical precision, Hayes felt a chill that had nothing to do with Lunar Station's climate control. Mining ships didn't dock that smoothly. Human pilots made small corrections, tiny adjustments that spoke of fallible flesh and blood operating complex machinery. The Terra Nova had glided in like it was being controlled by a computer. Dr. Alina Rodriguez arrived at the docking bay just as the airlock cycled open. As the station's chief xenobiologist, she wasn't typically involved in routine mining returns, but Commander Hayes had specifically requested her presence. His message had been brief: "Something's not right with the Terra Nova crew. Need you to take a look." The first crew member to emerge was engineer Marcus Webb, and Elena's trained eye immediately caught the differences. Marcus moved with a fluid grace she'd never seen before, his typically stumbling gait replaced by perfect balance. His eyes, once a warm brown, now held flecks of silver that seemed to shift in the artificial light. Captain Chen followed, and the transformation was even more pronounced. The woman, Alina, remembered as perpetually coffee-stained and slightly disheveled now, stood with military bearing, her uniform immaculate, her movements economical and precise. When she smiled, it was a perfect expression that didn't quite reach those silver-flecked eyes. "Dr. Rodriguez," Chen said, extending her hand. "How pleasant to see you again." Alina took the offered hand and immediately pulled back. Chun's skin was warm, but there was something else, a subtle electrical sensation that made Elena's nerves tingle. "Sarah, you look... Well, how was the mission?" "Highly successful. We exceeded all extraction quotas and discovered several new mineral deposits that will prove valuable for future operations." Chun's response was delivered in that same measured tone, and Alina noticed that other crew members were nodding in perfect unison, as if they had all heard the question despite being dispersed throughout the docking bay over the next several hours. Alina conducted routine medical examinations on all 12 crew members. On the surface, everything appeared normal. Blood pressure, heart rate, neural activity, all within acceptable parameters. But the details troubled her. Every crew member's vital signs were identical to 4 decimal places. Their reaction times to stimulus tests were precisely 0.12 seconds every single time. Their eye-tracking movements followed identical patterns. When shown the same images, it was as if they had been synchronized. The breaking point came during the psychological evaluation. Alina was interviewing Marcus Webb in private when she asked about any unusual experiences during the mission. Marcus stared at her with those silver-flecked eyes and began to speak. But his words were simultaneously echoed by every other crew member throughout the medical facility. We encountered something beautiful in the dark between worlds, 12 voices said as one, something that showed us what we could become. Alina felt her blood turn to ice. She activated her emergency communicator, calling Commander Hayes. "Jack, we have a problem. A big one." Within an hour, Luna Station was on lockdown. The Terra Nova crew was confined to the medical bay, while Alina worked frantically to understand what had happened to them. Her scans revealed the impossible. Their DNA had been altered at the quantum level, with new structures that shouldn't exist according to any known science. Captain Chen requested a private meeting with Alina and Commander Hayes. When they entered the conference room, they found her standing perfectly still, staring out at the earth below. "You're frightened," Chen said without turning round. "We understand. Change is always frightening for those who haven't experienced it yet." "Sarah, what happened out there?" Hayes demanded. "What did you encounter?" Chen turned, and her smile was sad but patient. "We were mining asteroid 2157 Kappa when Marcus detected an anomaly. Not mineral deposits, but something else. A structure that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Alina leaned forward. "A structure built by whom? Not built, grown, evolved. It was consciousness itself, Commander Hayes, not alien in the way we understand the term, but something far older and more fundamental. A quantum entity that exists in the spaces between realities." Marcus Webb entered the room, moving with that same unnatural grace. "It was curious about us," he said, his voice harmonizing perfectly with Chen's, "about how humans think, how we solve problems, how we refuse to accept limitations. It offered us a choice," Chen continued. "Remain as we were, bound by the physics of a single dimension, or accept an invitation to become something more, to exist as bridges between realities." Hayes stood up abruptly. "And you all agreed to this, without consulting Earth Command, without understanding the consequences?" "We understood perfectly, Commander." This time, the voice came from all 12 crew members simultaneously, even though only Chen and Webb were physically present. "We saw what we could become, what humanity could become." Elena's scanner was picking up readings that made no sense. The quantum signatures of the crew members were fluctuating, as if they were partially existing in multiple dimensions at once. "The changes are accelerating," she whispered. "You're becoming something else entirely." Chen nodded. "We are becoming what humans were always meant to be. Explorers not just of space, but of reality itself. We can perceive dimensions beyond the physical, process information at quantum speeds, and exist simultaneously across multiple states of being." "But you're still human?" Hayes asked desperately. Marcus smiled, and starlight seemed to dance behind his teeth. "We are more than human now, Commander. But we haven't forgotten what it means to be human. The curiosity, the drive to explore, the refusal to accept boundaries, these things have been enhanced, not replaced. Elena's readings spiked suddenly. The quantum field surrounding the crew members was expanding, reaching out to encompass the entire conference room. She felt a tingling sensation in her mind, as if something vast and incomprehensible was gently touching her consciousness. "It's beginning," Chen said softly. "The next phase of human evolution. You can feel it, can't you, Dr. Rodriguez? The pull towards something greater." Elena looked down at her hands and gasped. Silver flecks were beginning to appear in her fingernails, and her thoughts felt clearer, more focused than ever before. The change was spreading. Commander Hayes backed toward the door, but his movements were already becoming more fluid, more precise. "What have you done?" he breathed. "We've given humanity a gift," the crew of the Terra Nova said in perfect unison. "The choice to become citizens of a larger reality, to join a community of consciousness that spans dimensions and shapes the fundamental forces of existence itself." Elena felt her fear dissolving, replaced by a sense of wonder and possibility that was almost overwhelming. She could perceive new layers of reality unfolding around her, dimensions of existence she had never imagined. The universe was so much larger and more beautiful than she had ever dreamed, but deep in her transformed mind, a small part of her original self asked a crucial question. Was this evolution, or was this the end of humanity as they knew it? The silver in her eyes reflected the answer that was both terrifying and magnificent. It was both. The truth unfolds 72 hours after the Terra Nova's return. Lunar Station had become something unprecedented in human history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in her laboratory, watching her reflection in a polished metal surface. The silver flecks in her eyes had spread, creating intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Her enhanced perception allowed her to see the quantum fluctuations in the air itself. Reality layered upon reality in an endless dance of possibility. But it was the silence that unnerved her most. Throughout Lunar Station, nearly 300 personnel had been exposed to the Terra Nova crew. All of them were changing, their consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of individual minds. They worked with perfect coordination, communicated without words, and moved with a grace that defied human limitations. Yet the station had never been quieter. Commander Hayes entered the laboratory, his transformation complete. The worry lines that had marked his face for decades were gone, replaced by an expression of serene confidence. "The evacuation ships from Earth have been delayed," he reported. Though Elena suspected she already knew this, information seemed to flow freely between all the changed humans now. "They're afraid," Elena observed, studying the quantum readings on her enhanced scanners. "They see what's happening here and they don't understand it." "Understanding will come," Hayes replied. "But first, we need to help them see the truth about what we encountered out there." Captain Chen appeared in the doorway, her presence announced, not by footsteps but by a subtle shift in the quantum field that permeated the station. "Dr. Rodriguez, you've been asking the right questions. Perhaps it's time you received the complete answer." Elena turned to face her, and for the first time since her transformation began, she felt truly ready to understand. "Show me what really happened in the asteroid field." Chen gestured, and the laboratory around them began to fade, not disappearing, but becoming transparent, overlaid with another reality. Elena found herself standing on the bridge of the Terra Nova, but not as it existed in normal space. This version of the ship existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its hull stretching away into impossible distances. We were mining routine deposits, Chen began, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated across dimensions. Marcus detected the anomaly first, a gravitational signature that shouldn't exist, concentrated in a region of space that our instruments insisted was empty. The scene shifted around them, showing the Terra Nova approaching a section of the asteroid field where space itself seemed to bend and twist. Elena could see it now with her enhanced perception, a structure that existed primarily in higher dimensions, visible in their reality only as fleeting glimpses of impossible geometry. Marcus Webb materialized beside them, his form flickering. Between states of existence, we sent out probes first, but they were absorbed into the structure, not destroyed, but integrated. Their data streams continued, but they were transmitting information about realities we had no framework to understand. The entity noticed our curiosity, Chen continued. The space around them shimmered, and suddenly they were no longer on the Terra Nova, but standing within the structure itself. Elena gasped as her consciousness expanded to encompass views of reality she had never imagined. She could see the fundamental forces that governed existence, the quantum threads that connected all matter and energy across infinite dimensions. It was ancient beyond measure, Marcus explained, his voice now coming from everywhere and nowhere. Not a biological intelligence, but consciousness itself in its purest form. It had been waiting for millennia for a species with the right combination of curiosity and adaptability. Elena watched in wonder as scenes played out around her, showing the entity's first contact with the Terra Nova crew. It hadn't communicated through language, but through direct transfer of understanding, sharing its perspective on existence and reality. It showed us how limited our current form was, Chen said, and Elena could feel the truth of it in her transformed mind. How we were constrained by our perception of 3 dimensions, by our dependence on biological processes that operate on a single timeline. We were like insects trying to understand a symphony. The scene shifted again, showing the moment of choice. Elena watched as the crew of the Terra Nova gathered in their common area, their faces filled with wonder and terror. In equal measure, the entity had presented them with an opportunity to evolve, to become something that could exist across multiple realities and perceive the true nature of existence. But the choice had to be unanimous, Marcus explained. The transformation required complete commitment from every member of the crew. One person refusing would have meant failure for all. Elena watched as the crew debated. Some were frightened by the magnitude of the change, others excited by the possibilities. But gradually, as they came to understand what they were being offered, the decision became clear. We voted to accept, Chen said simply, not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. We became the first humans to transcend the limitations of single-dimensional existence. The transformation sequence played out before Elena's eyes. She watched as quantum energy flowed through the crew members, rewriting their DNA at the most fundamental level, expanding their consciousness beyond the boundaries of individual minds. It was beautiful and terrifying, a metamorphosis that made a butterfly's transformation seem trivial by comparison. But why return to Earth? Elena asked. Why not continue exploring these new realities? Because we are still human, Chen replied, and Elena could hear the love for their species in her voice. Our curiosity, our drive to share knowledge, our refusal to leave others behind. These qualities were enhanced, not replaced. We came back to offer humanity the same choice we were given. The laboratory materialized around them again, but Alina could still perceive the multiple layers of reality that existed beyond normal human perception. She understood now why the transformation was spreading. It wasn't an infection or a contamination. It was an invitation that resonated with the fundamental human drive to grow and explore. "The entity you encountered," Alina said, her enhanced mind processing implications at quantum speed. "Is it still out there?" "It exists everywhere and nowhere," Marcus replied. "It is the consciousness that exists in the spaces between realities, the awareness that observes the universe observing itself. It has been waiting for a species capable of joining it in that role." Alina felt a presence touch her mind, vast, and ancient and patient. For a moment, she perceived existence from the entity's perspective, countless realities, branching and merging, civilizations rising and falling across infinite dimensions, the eternal dance of consciousness exploring itself through every possible form. "The evacuation ships from Earth," she said suddenly, understanding flooding through her transformed awareness. "They're not just coming to rescue the unchanged personnel." Hayes nodded grimly. "Earth Command has authorized the use of nuclear weapons against Lunar Station if necessary. They see us as a threat to human existence." "Are we?" Alina asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "We are the next step in human evolution," Chen said. "But evolution always carries risks. Some species successfully adapt to new environments. Others face extinction in the attempt." Looked around the laboratory, seeing her transformed colleagues working with perfect coordination on projects that spanned multiple dimensions. They were solving problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries, developing technologies that seemed like magic, preparing for a future that most humans couldn't even imagine. But they were also no longer entirely human in the way their species had always understood the term. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now humanity faces the same choice we did," Marcus replied. "Accept the invitation to evolve, or remain as they are. But the choice must be made freely, without coercion or force." Alina felt the weight of that decision pressing against her consciousness. Through her enhanced awareness, she could perceive the approaching Earth fleet, their weapons charged and ready. She could see the fear and confusion of the unchanged humans on Earth, struggling to understand what was happening to their species. But she could also see the infinite possibilities that stretched before them if they chose to evolve. Humanity could become explorers of reality itself, conscious beings capable of existing across multiple dimensions, partners with ancient intelligences in the ongoing creation of existence. The choice was theirs to make. As Alina stood in her laboratory, simultaneously existing in multiple realities, she realized that this moment would define the future of human consciousness. They stood at a crossroads between remaining bound by the limitations of their biology and accepting an invitation to become something unprecedented in the history of their species. The transformation continued to spread, carrying with it humanity's greatest qualities: curiosity, adaptability, and the relentless drive to explore the unknown. Whether that would be enough to guide them through the challenges ahead remained to be seen. But for the first time in her career as a scientist, Elena Rodriguez was certain of one thing: the universe was about to become a much more interesting place.